Hi everyone, good morning to all. In the previous class, we have discussed about the various causes that led to the revolt of tribal communities in India. The Santhal tribals who lived in the present day Jharkhand, West Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha revolted against the British government and their policies in the year of 1855, but it was suppressed by the British government. The various policies introduced by the British government was the main reason behind the revolt organized by the various tribal communities in India. Increased demand of forest products forced the British government to take various steps against the tribal people who totally depended forest for their livelihood or for their living. They passed various forest laws which prohibited the entry of tribals in the forest and the access of forest resources. They forced them to pay taxes. They discouraged shifting cultivation and hunting animals. Movement of tribal communities in the forest or near the forest were prohibited by the British government. Besides the various policies introduced by the British government, the middlemen, the zamindars, moneylenders, clerks, munshis, etc., were also exploited the illiterate and the poor tribal communities. Even the British government interfered in the social life of the tribal people. All this led a revolt against the British government. In different part of the country, tribals organized revolt against the British government. Even though they were very small in size, they offered a tough competition or tough war to the British government. The Santals revolted against the British government and their policies, and the revolt or the war was continued 2 years. Like many other tribals in India, organized tough battles against the British government. In this session, we are going to discuss about the Birsa Munda revolt. The revolt organized by the Munda tribes of Singham district and Ranchi districts of Chota Nagpur plateau came to be known as Birsa Munda revolt, or it is also known as Basta rebellion. The revolt got its name by Birsa Munda, who led the revolt in the areas. Birsa Munda was the leader of the revolt that they organized. Let us discuss what were the various causes forced the Munda tribes to start a revolt against the British government. Earlier, before the arrival of the British government, the tribals who lived in the areas enjoyed customary rights over their land. They were the owners of the land. colonial rule curtailed their rights to access the forest and forest resources. Before the arrival of the Britishers, they were the customary rights. They were the owners of the land. Most of the tribals lived in the forest. They considered forest as a gift that they received from their ancestors. They protected their forest in their own ways or their own methods. They used the same forest for their livelihood, and at the same time they preserved and protected forest. They used the forest in such a way that they could reproduce very quickly. The various restrictions imposed by the British government over the tribals was the main reason behind the revolt. The tribals worked on their land, and part of their profit, the tribals worked on their land and paid tribute to their chief before the arrival of the Europeans in India, or before the entry or interference of British government over the affairs of the tribals in India. They cultivated their land and paid tribute to their chief. Their land system was known as Kutkari system. Kutkari system. The land system followed by the Munda Tribes were known as Kundakari systems. In this system, tribals were the owners of the land. The system was marked by the absence of the class of landlords. There was no landlords in this system. The land owned by the farmers or the tribal communities. They cultivate their land and paid tribute to the chief or the head of the tribes. There was no class of jamindars or landlords. But after the intervention of British government over the tribals, they introduced the jamindari system or jagirdari system in the areas. Under the jamindari system, the ownership of land was fell into the hands of the jamindar or jagirdar. He was responsible to collect tax from the areas. The British government appointed jamindars and jagirdars in the area in order to collect tax from the people. And they were the owners of land. Before, the tribals owned their land and cultivated. But after the introduction of jamindari system, the ownership of land was fell into the hands of the jamindars. This system disturbed the existing social order of the Mundas. It caused various or severe hardship in the life of the tribal peoples. The introduction of Jamindari system created the classes of zamindars and rights or tenants. Under the Jamindari system, the ownership of the land was given to zamindars, and the tribes or the people who cultivated the land came to be known as rights or tenants. These rights or tenants do not have any rights over the land. The tribes had to work in the land and had to pay taxes to the jamindars. Tribals mostly depended rainfall for their good harvest, and the failure of rainfall leads to the failure of crops and non-payment of taxes to the jagirdars or zamindars regularly. Failure in the crops forced the tribes to take loans from the money lenders or zamindars to pay their taxes to the government or zamindars. They charged a very high rate of interest from the tribals. If they failed to pay back their loans, they were forcefully evicted from their areas. If the tribals were not able to pay back their loans back to the money lenders or the zamindars who provided loans to them, their land was confiscated by the money lenders or the zamindars. Landlords and money lenders, landlords, money lenders, and government officers exploited the tribal communities in different ways. Besides these exploitations, famines that occurred between 1896 and 1900 further worsened the condition of the tribals who lived in those areas. Severe famines brought hardship in the life of the tribes. Many died due to starvation. Many lived in many were forced to live in very poor conditions. Even the social system of the tribals affected by the British policies. Tribals had their own judicial system of clan councils. Tribals they adopted their own system of judicial administration. They have clan councils. This clan council settled their cases freely without any fees, but the judicial system introduced by the British government forced them to pay fees to the advocates or lawyers to settle their cases. The British government replaced the judicial system by the modern courts, modern judicial courts. In order to settle their cases or disputes, tribals were forced to pay fees to the advocates. Exploitation and oppressions from the British officials and zamindars made their life difficult. Apart from these difficulties, natural calamities such as famines, drought, etc., also worsened the condition of the tribals. All these forced the tribal people to revolt against the British government and their policies. The revolt was led by Birsa Munda. He was the leader of the Birsa Munda revolt, and they targeted against all the outsiders, dicus, landlords, traders, merchants, and government officials. Various causes led to the revolt of Birsa Munda or the Bastar revolt. First one, introduction of Zamindari system. High rate of tax. Then next one, arrival of outsiders. Forced policies. Various forced policies. Then next one, interference in the social setup of the tribals. Natural calamities. Natural calamities. First one, introduction of Jamindari system, high rate of tax, arrival of outsiders and their exploitative nature, forced policies introduced by the government, interference in the social setup of the tribals, natural calamities are the important causes led to the revolt of Mundas organized by the Birsa Munda, known as Birsa Munda revolt. Let's wind up today. Tomorrow we will discuss about the progress of the Birsa Munda revolt and the revolt organized by the tribals in the northeast